Hello everyone. So before I get to the main topic of this video, which is a critique of the left, I want to give a quick update with the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett has been confirmed the third justice under Trump's first term. And, the confirmation vote was along party lines, but three Democrats voted for cloture, which basically means like an end of the debate over the topic of her nomination. It strikes me as funny that even though they're helpless in that process regard and they don't have the votes, they still can't even on a symbolic level have any consistency just because like these three Democrats that voted to end the debate were one of them, the one that was like special and kind of like unique to me was Tim Kaine, who was Hillary's VP pick. So it's like hashtag resistance. You're freaking the VP candidate. The previous one is going along with this process, and it just shows like this is a failed strategy. Like I don't know what the Democrats were thinking, like going along with this, because they're making all these statements about like all the Republicans will like they change the rules, and it's like they're saying like next time when like you're gonna regret this. Well, you should have made them regret it now. It's like you should have done whatever you can to make it hard for them now, because that's good politics. That's how you lead, and that's once the hearings began and the Democrats were taking part, it's like it didn't matter because the opinion polls, it was like once the hearings began, the public's opinion of Amy Coney Barrett was going up. So it's just and the thing is, the idea of using this as a rallying cry to go out and vote now for the Democrats, like that to me is very disingenuous in a way, because it just completely ignores the severity of the situation and the truth of how it's like the Supreme Court now, at least a 5-4 conservative majority, if not 6-3. So, like I've said before, even if you have a Democratic president, a Democratic Congress, Senate, and House, then they're not gonna get whatever they need to get done passed. And by the way, it's going to be the most incremental change, probably. That's the thing, is that people act like, and I know probably it's only like the far right, like mostly Trumpist people that think this way, like like Biden is like a socialist. Like I know, right? Like that's ridiculous. I've gone into that too many times. Like I don't need to go on and on about that. But like no, like Biden, they're going to put forth incremental change, and the court will likely strike that down as well. So this idea that your vote's going to count now, I feel like it's gonna like people are going to interpret that a lot differently now, given the Supreme Court. And at the same time, I don't know how especially with young people, like how much does the Supreme Court weigh on how they choose to vote? I don't know. I mean, but just it's a really bad situation to be in, because just it's stacked against you, and it was a power play move by Mitch McConnell, and I think it is really going to pay off ultimately, because just these Supreme Court seats, they're lifetime appointments, so it's decades long. It impacts from this, I'm sure. And again, I want to emphasize this too, like, even if you want to grant that nothing will be done about Roe versus Wade, it's like, I don't even know at this point, like, they might go after Roe versus Wade, I don't know. But even if I want to put that aside, there's a lot of economic concerns, as I pointed out before, with the overtime pay with Grubhub and how Amy Coney Barrett sided in that, but also with the ACA and healthcare for millions of Americans. It's a very important deal. And again, like I've said countless times, I'm very critical of Obama and the ACA and how it didn't go far enough. But look, at the end of the day, you have to talk about how these decisions they ultimately affect how Americans are, like if they're qualified to get health care, and if they're, and we know in this country that people can't afford health care, they die in the street. And that's what Trump said in the 2016 primary debate. He's like, people are dying in the streets, so they're not going to care about private or whatever. So they did nothing on health care. I mean, what a joke! Because like they only talk about taking apart the ACA in terms of healthcare. Like, there's no specific plan. They talk about they're going to protect pre-existing conditions. They're not telling you how, because the only difference between Democrats and Republicans on healthcare at this point is that the Democrats want to just like control the insurance companies a little bit more, and the Republicans don't want to control the insurance companies at all. I mean, this is where we're at, because just Biden is not for Medicare for all. This is what I'm saying. Like it's such a boogeyman for them. He's not for Medicare for all, and he's tepidly fighting for the public option. It's just not a very good cornerstone of his campaign, unfortunately. I feel like it could be if they made the point more forcefully, but they aren't. I'm just sorry. Like this bare minimum nonsense from the Democrats is very detrimental. I think it's not good in terms of getting the turnout up. I, I just feel like, yeah, like as it's getting down to the wire and closer to the election, like Biden is looking worse now. The polls say he's still better, he's still good, better than Hillary was up until this point. So the numbers are kind of biased in favor of Biden winning, but in terms of the youth turnout, it's really a coin toss, I don't know if it'll decide the election or not. It's really hard to say. Um, and I guess maybe the breakdown of African American voters and Latino voters, because I mean, the truth is, the first time around with Trump, there was a pretty significant portion of those demographics that went to Trump, like more so than the norm that went to the Republican in that case. So it is hard to tell what'll happen in that way. But just okay, yeah, like I was saying before, the rallying cry, like this is so ridiculous, because I mean, talk about putting the cart before the horse. I mean, just you in this moment now where people see like, wow, there's going to be not a lot of hope in not just the near future but decades down the line now, and they're saying, yeah, go out and vote. You're gonna make a difference. And Pelosi did that, like after um like this confirmation was sealed up. She's like put out a press statement. Yeah, go out and vote. This is ridiculous. It's like they have no awareness about what's going on. I mean, like they're acting like that. I think they do, but they're just pandering to people and just trying to put their message out there in a way that people are going to somehow digest. I just don't know how they think. I really don't, because it makes no sense to me. How, again, like I've said, I could go on and on, but the last thing I'll say on this point is there's so much more that could have been done to stop, or I'm sorry, like at least halt the process for Barrett's nomination. They could have shifted over to stimulus and been like, yeah, like why are you not taking up stimulus now when American families are dying and they're at risk of losing their homes because of the eviction crisis, like countless things, and the Republicans want to push this justice through and not talk about stimulus right now. Like they could have reframed it that way. There's a lot of procedural things they could have done as well, but Nancy Pelosi did nothing. She talked about having all of the arrows in her quiver. Remember that? Well, how did that turn out? Yeah, not good. So there's so much more that could have been done, and I think, yeah, they probably ultimately didn't care that much about trying to stop this nomination. I don't know why. They just felt it was a better rallying cry to get people out to go vote. It's like, yeah, they'll see the horrible things, but like if you really believed it was that bad, like you would do whatever you could to stop it, and even like I said before, like going as far as to like not show up at all and halt the process and make it just harder for the Republicans to go forward. Because the thing is, if you don't understand the value of making the Republicans wait till after the election to actually confirm Amy Coney Barrett, and if Biden were to win, like you don't understand the value of that. It is astounding to me how bad these Democratic consultants or strategists, whatever you want to call them, like it's amazing how bad they are at their job. It really is. Okay, calm down a little bit. But I'll switch to the main topic. What's supposed to be the main topic of this, and I mean, this is what I've been doing is like a critique of the left. But so the Kamala 60 Minutes interview was very just annoying to me for a lot of reasons, and I'm gonna try and be as specific as I can. I mean, she's asked about standing up for the policies, like she signed on to Medicare for All in Congress. Now, first point I'll make is signing on to Medicare for All when you're in the Trump era and they control Congress, or the Republicans control everything, signing on to Medicare for All when you know it has no chance of passing, that is a world of difference between you're supporting Medicare for All, you're running for president, you're likely to become the vice president in Kamala's case. So you have to point out the difference in the context there, because this is what happens all the time. They do it just for the like symbolic value of, yeah, I'm a progressive, yay, I signed on to Medicare for All, even though I knew it was definitely not going to come up for a vote, and they probably would have voted it down. It's like it really just makes no sense. So she's asked about, she did that, so is she going to push those policies on Biden? And she basically said no, but it wasn't a fully direct answer. But she offered up her corny identity politics, and she's talking about, like, I'm going to bring my lived experience as a woman, as a black child, as a prosecutor, as she mentioned her mother who came from India, and then that she likes hip hop. I mean, and this laughing, I don't want to get too nitpicky, but just the laughing is really out of touch to me. It's really out of place, and I don't know why. I think we should have a little bit more of a serious tone, or it's not even about being serious, but you know, you're asked a very serious question about policy, and you're barely even answering it. She said she wouldn't have signed on to the administration. She wouldn't have joined up if she hadn't agreed with Biden's platform. So, you know, it's like leaving a little bit of wiggle room. Like, maybe we can go left, but no, I'm not taking the bait. That is a ridiculous notion to even float the idea that Kamala or Biden are leftists is hysterical to me. When you look at their records, and Kamala too, I mean, as a prosecutor, she's very tough on crime, and she's there's been instances where people, like, on a technicality reason, people are she kept in longer in prison, and the list goes on and on. The truancy thing, don't even get me started. I mean, it's absurd. And it's not that surprising, you know, it was just not a very tactful response. But look, it's amazing to me that even though, like, liberals worship Obama, like, they don't learn from his strategy in terms of how he delivers the message, because I mean, like, he knew you had to at least pretend to be populist. And Bill Clinton knew it too. He triangulation, and you know, like, the thing is, the political climate was different back then. Even with Obama, the left was not, I feel like, as fully realized as it is now. So you got to be much smarter about how you message to people. And so I get it. Maybe Kamala doesn't want to identify with the socialist label. Fine. I whatever. Fine. I've said before, Bernie should have positioned himself as the moderate because he's the moderate for the people. Like when you poll the people, he's actually for what they want. So he's the real moderate. So I'm fine with dropping the socialism label, even though I think it is a little bit hyperbolic in the sense like there's fear mongering about it. It's not all that it's cracked up to be with like the far right how they portray it. But besides that, if you want to drop the label for your trying to appeal to other voters, fine. But progressive, she was asked about progressive, if that's her perspective. I don't see what's wrong with embracing that term, and you can again just make an argument. Just I don't get why the left never makes an argument, and I'm not even. Yeah, Biden and Kamala aren't left, by the way. I know I've said it over and over. Just stop complaining about how young people are not being enthusiastic for your shitty campaign. Because Biden and Kamala, it's been very bare minimum. I think even more so than Hillary in the sense that we just don't see them out there, putting their message forward and arguing tooth and nail for what they believe in. From Biden or Kamala, and this is the problem with Obama too that I'll get into, but I just don't know why people want to rely on the hatred of Trump, and it's frustrating that they don't want to go at this election just full force, tackle the issues that people care about. I mean, Medicare for All is so popular even within the Democratic Party, let alone just with the American people. So this is just basic stuff for the Democrats to get their base out there to vote and really maximize the numbers. Excuse me. I talked about Democrats on healthcare and how the Republicans were a train wreck. They couldn't come. They had nothing in terms of even a policy that they could point to that would be their plan. There's just nothing. It's so vague. It's just all about repealing the ACA, and they've been pretty successful at doing that. And like I said before, they're in court to try and get rid of what's left. I think it's just pre-existing conditions, and they're promising they're going to protect them, but they don't say how. So, yeah, I talked about all this. Sorry, I got a little bit ahead of myself, I guess. At the end of the day, it's not the focus on policy with Kamala or Biden, and that's a huge problem. I want to almost be as generous as I can because I understand the idea that they aren't really progressive, Biden and Harris, so they shouldn't lie. They shouldn't say that they're more left than they actually are. So they're just kind of being honest about what they'll stand up and fight for. Well, fair enough, but they just don't even give their neoliberal argument a good run. Like I said before, they don't argue for the public option tooth and nail. And in terms of what I've seen with climate change, it's a few moments in the debate, it's not gonna do, and all this wonky stuff on your website. You gotta actually give people a concrete vision. And talk about again how it improves their material needs. So, the last thing I'll end on is AOC on Obama because this is a pretty important point in terms of just how do we address the problems within the left. Um, and we have to it's like you acknowledge that there's a problem there, and then you have to find solutions for moving on from it. Because if we just keep going through and like not acknowledge that something wrong was done, and this is part of the process of how Trump came to power in the first place, like the neoliberal consensus in both parties. This is why we're at where we're at, and this is why I think we're afraid of Biden and Harris in the long term. Because if it's just go back to business as usual and there's no fundamental change in the country, which I think will likely be the case, even with that grassroots pressure, if there's a lot of protests, I don't know how responsive Biden and Harris will be. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see that much change in the next 4 years. I just don't. And if that's the case, I think an even worse Trump will emerge. I think someone who's even more competent, who basically believes the same things, will emerge from the right. But in terms of AOC and Obama, what she said was just not true. And what she was saying was Obama did everything he could under GOP obstruction. And, like, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Like, you can go check out what she said, but that framing is just completely wrong. Because, again, look up on healthcare. Obama had a supermajority. Obamacare passed with 0 Republican votes. So he had to control his own party to just get a public option. That's what he was supposedly fighting for, but that lasted no time at all. And then they switched to the ACA, which, by the way, is like a right-wing plan. This was the Romney plan in Boston or wherever he was. I don't know. And Newt Gingrich, all these right-wing people signed on to this idea of the individual mandate. Like, this was a right-wing thing, and then Obama did that. He stole their idea, and the right-wing still went after him and like obstructed him like crazy. So it's like you're not acknowledging that Obama could have done a lot more to twist arms within his own party. And like Kyle Kalinske on Secular Talk has talked about this a lot. How if you're the president, like, you go after the blue dogs and say, hey, you know what? If you're not going to fight for this healthcare plan, then okay, I'm going to like support the primary challenger against you, and yeah, you're going to be gone because I'm the president. I'm the more popular one. Like this is how politics works. When you get into office, usually like you're more popular. I mean, like Trump is a little bit of a odd example, because like that was not really the case. As a matter of fact, like it's also true that like when the president leaves office, they get a higher approval rating over time. But we'll see. Only time will tell. But look, with AOC on Obama, like we got to be honest about how we have to organize better, strategize better. We have to know who our enemy is, and we have to twist arms and do whatever we can to implement change. When we talk about the Supreme Court, I don't think the conversation about court packing should be off the table. No, because I'm interested in what will be better for the vast majority of Americans. Okay, like what are the decisions made by people in positions of power? Are those decisions going to influence people in a negative way? I want to fight against that. So the Democrats, they don't know how to fight. It's like we push them so hard just to do even an inkling of incremental change, and it gets nowhere. Like the real kind of realization I've had with Amy Coney Barrett being confirmed to the court now is that what we've seen with the ACA, it's being torn apart, and Trump is successful at this. This is just the preview of what's to come. We're in a new era of American politics. So the Democrats have to either adapt or die at this point. Like they're going to be done as a political party if they can't change with the flow of how young people view capitalism and socialism. And again, it's like I feel like people, it's such a hyperbole to act like people are like, oh yeah, we're going to get rid of all capitalism, we're going to get rid of all corporations. We're talking about very basic necessity things, talking about healthcare, education, housing, maybe, like very basic things that should be off the table. And it's the equality of opportunity, not outcome, because we're not giving people a mansion, we're not giving people $1 million, we're giving people just the basic things they need to survive. That's the philosophy that I have. And you could call it progressive, leftist, I don't know what you want to call it. Those are two words that work fine for me, I guess. But if the Democrats can't, adjust with the new generation, they're just destined to lose. It's like I don't know how much longer they can lose and continue to be a legitimate institution. So I really hope that this grassroots pressure if it has any influence over Biden, if we can, just inch the needle of progressive change a little bit on one issue or another, it's just that's the best we can do at this point. I feel like, until we get a better progressive leader to the forefront.